Actually I've already ordered something basically.
Sorry?
I've already ordered something, so it should be
Oh,
coming.
you did? What?
Soon.
What did you order?
I ordered one of the burgers that they have.
Oh, you
Yeah,
did?
yeah, certainly.
How come I didn't
I
hear
can't
that?
wait.
How come I didn't hear that?
I can't wait.
You are so sneaky.
Hey, somebody got to be sneaky. Yeah, no, certainly.
You know, like
yeah.
I met a couple of guys so far. You are the third of my friends, right?
Mhm.
And you know, this is the place to be.
Here
right?
you go. Here you go. Right?
Yeah.
Mhm. Well, I mean, it takes a
And
toll.
when it bothers you, it becomes a nuisance.
It takes a toll on you. It takes a toll on anyone, right? Because
Yeah.
if you're doing something routinely, you have to get this routine done.
Mm-hmm.
And the next day you come, you got to get the same routine done.
Yeah.
You know, there's no creativity in routines, right? That's my observation about routines. There's no creativity in routines
Mm-hmm.
because there's no autonomy in terms of how you do it, what you do. It's just that you have to follow the routine. No, well, I personally, no, well, to be honest with you, to be honest, I mean, I do not necessarily like vacation. I don't like vacations.
I
I
thought
really,
you've been joking all the time about that.
no, no, I'm serious, man. I've always told any and everyone that I do not like vacations.
And why is that?
The reason why I do not like vacations is because when you come back from vacation, you have a whole lot more work to do to catch up from where you left off,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there's no way of bypassing that.
Exactly.
But it's not necessarily that I'm for routines or I am a big proponent of routines or I'm a big supporter of routines. I don't like that, you know, because it's
Now you've made a huge case about routine. Now. You know, like it's been almost like a research type of
it's like a mini thesis.
presentation.
It's like a mini thesis. It's like a mini thesis. You just say there you are.
So so tell me, Sylvester,
Mm-hmm.
I'm so curious about your
My origin
adventure with immigration.
with immigration.
Yeah, from immigration from your country, and you came from Barbados, right?
No.
Did you live
No,
in
basically, no. It's, so this is how I look at it. I mean, I have a very agnostic way of looking at things, right? So
Okay, explain.
yeah, so
Explain agnostic here.
yeah, so you know there are people who believe in one extreme in either one way or the other.
Yeah. Okay.
There are those who just don't believe in either extremes.
All right.
So they're more or less. So I term those guys to be those individuals to be agnostic,
Yeah. Okay.
right? So
But in terms of your
and it's not it's
immigration.
without having that religious implication. I'll explain that to you. Without having that religious indication to it, right? So it's not anything religious, but agnostic in the sense that you're straight down the middle without having to identify with either extremes.
All
Okay,
right.
that's my definition.
Okay.
Of
And
what
how
it
does
is,
it
right?
relate to your
Right. So that's
adventure to Canada?
right, and that's basically what I wanted to kind of use to get into the points that
Okay.
into the question that you just asked me. That's just the interlude to that.
Okay.
And so basically, the way I say it is, I like to consider myself a Caribbean man. Like I used to tell some of my clients, like I'm a Caribbean specimen.
Okay.
And I remember this one Italian lady, she's like, "Oh, you're a specimento." Yeah, right?
That's what she said.
Yeah, she said
Oh,
you're a specimento.
she must be liking
You
you.
must taste good.
Yeah.
I said to her, I said to her, not so fast, because I might be very spicy. Yeah, I said I might be very spicy, and you may not like so much spice on
Absolutely.
the
You know,
palate.
like
Palate may not be able to.
although Italians have some spice to it,
Well,
right? In their food.
I'm not denying that at all, but I'm just saying Caribbean spice is somewhat different, right?
Oh, I'm sure of that.
But as I said to her, you may not necessarily appreciate the spiciness of But anyway, long story short, so I like to consider myself from the Caribbean rather than. So I'm representing all the islands in the Caribbean, from the Bahamas in the north all
Right,
the way down to Trinidad in the south, right?
right.
So rather than identify with any one island in the Caribbean, I like to say I'm a Caribbean specimen. So that's
I
basically what I
see.
mean.
So yeah, you take it as a whole.
As a whole, rather than as
Right.
yeah.
I see. Okay, and why is that? Why don't you want to focus
Identify.
on the area where you were brought up and kind of expose it right away?
Yeah, because and I mean that's a great question, right? But I think because what I think is that the culture, the Caribbean culture, is it's not necessarily there's not much diversity in the Caribbean culture. There might be diversity in customs, right? So, for an example, the manner in which one island does things as opposed to the other, there might be slight variations to that, but generally it's the same, right? It's the same when you if you were to meet with Caribbean, if you were to meet with somebody who came from the Caribbean,
Hmm.
regardless of the islands that the person, or if you, let's say you meet with a few people who came from the islands
Hmm.
from the Caribbean, you will know that they are from the Caribbean. You may not know which island they are from, simply because of certain customs, simply because of certain, the manner in which they conduct themselves, right? And I'm not saying it's anything terrible or anything good. I'm just saying, just you can know, okay, or we will, those of us who are from the islands will know exactly that this person was not necessarily from my island, but this person is a Caribbean island. So it's a Caribbean flavor. You can feel it. If I can use the food analogy to refer to ourselves in the Caribbean, right? So
Okay.
you may not necessarily know that this person is. In many cases, for an example, when I meet somebody from the Caribbean, who is from a different island, unlike me, right? I could say, "Oh, Caribbean, right? So, yeah, Caribbean." And I mean, well, there are times based on the way the person speaks. So you
Right.
say, oh, Barbadian or Bajan.
I see.
Or you say, oh, St. Lucian. Or you say, hey, you know
Okay.
what?
So to the
Trinidadian.
outsider, so are you telling me that to the outsider, like Canadian, for example, or American, right? When they look at a person coming from that area, from the Caribbean, they don't tend to distinguish between the islands. They kind of frame them in one area, and
Right. Well, yeah.
that's
So,
where it's coming from,
but
or what you are saying,
certainly. So this is also a function of that as well, right? So, for an example, the way I identify with the culture,
hmm
I do not necessarily want to be island specific, even if I could be, but I choose not to be island
well,
specific, and that is simply because
who are you island specific to? Are you island specific to the people within the Caribbean only, or other to the Caribbean population there, right? Or also to other people you are mingling with?
no, well, no, no. Basically, what I mean, I'm not quite sure if I understand you, but if I do, are you asking? Are you saying that? Are you asking whether I'm specific when I'm referring to somebody from the Caribbean? Am I being specific to what? To Ireland?
No, because
Can you
my
rephrase that?
question is, I'm curious where it's coming from because majority of people, when you speak to any immigrant,
Mm-hmm.
okay,
Mm-hmm.
in Canada or
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter any country, right?
Mm-hmm.
They are always talking about their own country. They name the country. They don't name the area, okay?
Mm-hmm.
They name the country.
Right.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
now you are telling me that you are not naming the country, that you prefer not to name the country, you prefer to name the area,
Yeah, I
which is
prefer.
Caribbean.
Yeah, certainly, I
Now, and
prefer.
my question is it because you are if you that like is it because of your preference, is it because of other people not being interested in the specific of what's what countries, what
Or not,
islands are in the Caribbean,
not
just
necessarily.
know Caribbean, and they are not
No, no, not necessarily.
interested in any more details?
And this is
Is it coming from
that
that?
is no, that's a brilliant question that you've asked, right? So, and I'll tell you why I think I tend to refer to Caribbean rather than any island within the Caribbean,
Okay.
because most people, most individuals from outside the Caribbean, right? From say outside the Caribbean, from outside Bahamas all the way down to Trinidad,
Okay.
right? Most individuals they know of a few islands,
Mm-hmm.
but there are a myriad of islands within the
Oh, for
Caribbean,
sure, of course.
right? And very few islands, geographically, very few islands are known by people. People only know by people who are from the outside world, right?
I
So
think I understand.
the people from the outside world, what they know is they know Bahamas, Jamaica,
I understand what you're
Cuba,
saying. I think I understand
right?
what
And
the
as
issue is. I think the
and
issue is, let me guess. I'm going to take a guess now.
mhm,
Okay. You may be, you don't want to be surprised by someone when you
mhm,
say, I am from Barbados.
mhm,
That someone would say, and where is that?
right. So for an
Is this
example,
coming from that?
so yeah, so for an example, that is a typical example of that, right? So for
Yeah,
an example, the person will say, "Oh, where's this island? Well,
exactly.
I've never been to
And you
that
don't want to
island."
get into the
Right.
answering such a question, right?
Exactly.
Exactly. Okay,
And I don't necessarily want to frame the person's mind around geography and tell them where this island is
I see.
located and where this island is
And this would
geographically,
never
right?
arise with naming your place of origins as
As the
Caribbean,
Caribbean. So
because
yeah.
everybody knows it.
And if you don't know it, then you have to go
Yeah,
determine it. You have to
then
go.
like
You have to.
you have a problem,
You have a problem. You have a serious problem. So rather than not, right? So you have a serious problem.
right?
But
I
when you
see.
go into specific
I
islands, then it
see.
gets deeper.
I see.
Oh, so where is this island located? And then you said, well, this island is between these two islands. And then you say,
Okay.
oh, I've been to this island and that island, but not to this island.
Right.
And
Right.
then it becomes a little dicey, right? And it becomes a little awkward. The conversation becomes a little, to me, it feels a little awkward then. Now,
Okay.
so now I have to try to school you. I have to try to kindergarten you. I have to try to, pre-K you,
Yeah.
kindergarten you
Yeah. And
into
that requires efforts
it
and
requires and it
time,
requires and I realize
awkwardness, right?
yeah, it takes a little while to educate people on those things because if you do not know your geography, then there's no way you're gonna get to them in 1 minute or 2 minutes or five
Right.
minutes at the very most, right?
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
so as a
I
result, it's
understand.
just yeah,
You cut the corners here.
not necessarily cut corners. I present the broad picture.
No, yeah, okay. So we understand that. And now
Mm,
I understand that you came to Canada by yourself and as an adult,
yeah, I mean, I was an adult when
right?
yeah, certainly.
So your how was your the experience in the first year or two in
Oh,
Canada? Were you was it hard to adjust? Was it difficult? The weather, the culture, the people, like how was it?
well, it wasn't necessarily. It was not in the initial stages, it wasn't necessarily difficult to adjust. And with regards to adjustment, because I realized what I've recognized is that the Caribbean is an extension of North America. Right? It's just an extension down the street, right? It's just
I see.
right. It's just an extension of islands that goes from Florida, from the Florida Keys.
Right.
If I could use that loosely,
Yeah.
or just 10 miles away from Florida, 12 miles away from Florida, you have the Bahamas, that stretches all the way down to Trinidad. So it's just an extension. To me,
Yeah.
all of that could be part of if America was a little more aggressive in terms of, or North America was a little more aggressive in the way in their approach
Yeah.
to, to being more in, in terms of the integration of surrounding islands and countries within, right?
Right.
Within that geography, within that location.
Okay.
All of that would be part of North America, really.
Exactly.
If you
So
think
so
about
I
it, right?
understand that that's
So the
so
proximity is
so
nothing
there is no
really, right?
issue with adjusting,
So
to a
there's no
new
issue.
place, because
There is
everything is kind of
it's
obvious.
all yeah, certainly. So it's
I see.
not necessarily no. When you're talking about culture in terms of there's a vast difference in terms of culture, right?
Yeah.
So which is understandably so, right? So that that did not come as a shock to me. What I was expecting though was that things would have been a little easier, right? Because of the way things are portrayed on television, in the media. You see things, you see all the shiny lights, you see and you want to get out there and you want to reach those lights, right?
Right.
But it's not necessarily as easy as you and I might see it,
I
right?
see. So that
So
was like like career wise and getting ahead, right? All those
well,
aspects of life,
well,
or something
career,
that I omitted here.
career wise, it's like again you have to start. It's almost like you have to start from the bottom up, right?
Right.
So for an example,
So
if
that's
you
part of it.
that's part of the
Okay.
that's part of the how can I say it's part of the indoctrination, if you can use that word loosely, right?
Okay.
It's part of the
That
indoctrination.
may be too
So
far.
yeah, it might be too far, but again, it feels like it, right? Because sometimes, and I've had individuals who've also had that conversation with me as well. It's almost like, well, that may not be the appropriate word, but I'll tell you why. But it seems like that's what it is, right? But it's like there are individuals I've met, some individuals who from Eastern Europe,
Hmm. Like
Eastern,
myself.
right? Eastern Europe. There was this one guy, Andrew, who's from Poland, and he's telling me, "Oh, Sylvester, man, I got my, that degree, and he's trying to get a job, and he wants to, but now he finds himself he has to go back to school,
I
right?
see.
So he had to go back to school
To
rather
get
than
Canadian experience,
to get educational experience,
educational experience. Okay.
and then, and maybe
Yeah.
after that is all said and done, then he has to find himself at a menial job to
To
get
get Canadian experience, work
work
experience. Yeah,
experience. So
that
that was
everybody went through it.
so everybody has to go through that. So that was one of the biggest learning curve I think everyone would have to endure, right?
Yeah.
In the initial stages. But once you acclimatize yourself to the culture, to what's happening, to understanding what's going on, then it becomes yeah, you say, oh, you know what, that was a good sacrifice for what's the results are right now, right? The current results, right?
Right.
So it pays. It pays. What the dividends that
Yeah, you
you're
have to
reaping.
spend some time, and sometimes it takes years
So let me take
to go through
years,
that process first,
right?
right? That's the first phase
Mm-hmm.
to
Yeah.
to start anew.
So yeah, certainly. So it takes a while to get to that point, right? To get to the point where you want to. But if you're diligent about it, right? If you're diligent about it, then it becomes a matter of in your hindsight, as you indicated, right? It becomes it becomes like, hey, you know what? That was a great price to pay, right?
Right.
For the reward that
Of
you're
course.
reaping right
Yeah.
now, right? So
It's already
so
past, right? We went through it. We
you
don't
went
think about it anymore. It was hard, but we forgot
no,
about
but
it,
no, but
right?
you but no, but it's not necessarily you don't think about it, but you try not to think about it. But it's part of the history of what brought you here. So as a result,
Exactly.
of what when I say brought you here, I'm not saying brought you here from your country to here.
No, no, I understand.
What I'm saying, what made you or what
Yeah, we're
molded
talking
you,
about the person progression, right?
the progression from one point to the next,
Yeah.
right? So as a result, what saw you here and is now looking at you here,
Right.
right?
And
So
that's the result. Here is the result.
oh well, I wasn't thinking that though, but you brought it up. So I think you.
Oh, that's the battery.
Okay.
That's okay. That's okay. It, it,
Yeah.
it still
Oh,
takes.
it's
Okay.
still
That's okay.
okay. So yeah, so basically, so that's the result, right? And that's what you find, So, but it's not. I mean, no. Conversely, though, because I've had conversations with individuals again from both the Caribbean and outside of the Caribbean, and
Hmm.
and I'm looking at, and it's not everyone who had the most, the best of experiences through all those
There
ordeals,
are many
right?
people with
Right.
difficult
So
experience, right?
who have had difficult experiences, and this is the one thing that I've always looked at, right? So, and it's going to be profound when I
But
mention it.
not to deny the fact that we've also had difficult experience going through the process, because it can happen either way, right?
Oh yeah, it
You
could,
can end up in a place you never desired to end up,
right?
right? And even if you end up in a place where you desire to end up,
Mhm.
you go through that difficult stages that
You went, yeah.
affect you,
So it
right?
affects you for the rest of your life,
Yeah,
really, right?
yeah.
And I mean, and that's one of the things that I've always kind of carried with me in my mind, because I've seen individuals who've migrated, right? Individuals who've migrated,
Hmm.
and some of them I tend to, sort of, and I'm not sure if I can mention it in that manner, right? And I don't necessarily want to be.
We are not talking about names. We are
No,
not
no, no, no,
naming
no. It's not.
anybody.
It's not names. That has nothing to do with names. But I'm just saying it has. It's just the impact, right? The impact of what you see at
Hmm.
times, right? Sometimes, and I mean, I've known individuals, what I mean, who've left and who've migrated, and with the intentions of being a better person or becoming a better person, both economically and or economically, right? Let's just look at the economic side of things,
Okay. Hmm.
right? Move, whether the person is from Africa, from Europe, from the Caribbean, from Central and South America,
Right.
regardless of where the person is coming from,
Okay.
the person's always come with the intention of making a better life, right?
Exactly.
And most of the time, and many, not most, I don't want to say most because I do not have any statistics to substantiate that. But there are times you may have one or two persons who may not necessarily end up on the right side of the event, right?
Right.
And as a result, it's kind of painful. It's kind of painful, and that is one of the things that have always haunted me. I mean, I've always, whenever I'm out, whenever and it doesn't have to be out on the streets or out working or out there doing, but it's just something that's continuously on my mind, right?
That even
And
that
it's
if something if you trip on something, right,
Mhm.
you may end up in a place you would not like to end up.
Right. So certainly. So for an example,
Yeah.
if you trip, let's use that analogy. If you trip, you may end up snapping an arm,
Yeah.
right? Snapping an arm or snapping a vertebra, right? But what might eventually happen is it may never heal.
Yeah. No,
It
I
may never it
understand.
may never heal,
You
right?
know what? I've
And
had
it
it
gets
in my at the back of my mind. I've always had that
right.
realization, right?
Hmm.
These thoughts
Right.
that if something like I explained to you an example with the client,
Hmm.
right? This is a great
That's a client.
example.
Yeah, that's a client.
This is an example of that.
Yeah.
And if I acted more forcefully
Hmm.
at that time,
Hmm.
then it may have turned against me.
Right. And
And
then
that's an example of tripping,
right. And then yeah,
because you don't
exactly.
know about the reaction.
You don't know.
So
You
that's
don't
we are, I think
because
we are more careful
you're right. You don't.
because we realize that how hard it was to get to that point,
Yeah.
and we don't want to derail.
Right.
We
Exactly.
don't want to derail,
And
right?
you don't know what the consequences are.
Right.
And there is no playbook. There's no playbook in place that will say to you, these are the consequences for this action,
Exactly.
right? You don't know that. And even if you were to take that manual or that playbook and say, these are the consequences, in the playbook, it doesn't tell you what you do to redeem yourself,
Okay.
to get back to where you were. and then continue, right?
Yeah,
Or take a
there
different
is no
path.
such thing.
There's no such thing, right? So once you get to that point, so let's suppose you trip,
You can
and after
always go forward, and you can only
you
divert.
you,
You
you
can
can
only
you can
divert.
divert, but sometimes when you divert, it may not necessarily be the you could divert if you're on the wrong trajectory, right?
Right.
If you're on a
No, no,
terrible,
you are on the right trajectory,
but if
but you
you
divert from it because of incidents like you mentioned,
right,
right?
so yeah, so certainly, so you divert from it, right? Or it just retards your growth, right?
Right.
And as a result, you find yourself in a position that you become so helpless. And in many cases, again, I do not have any statistics, but I'm gonna say in some cases,
It's anecdotal. It's all anecdotal.
yeah, exactly, it's right. Certainly it is, right? And in some cases, what you find is the individuals who migrated and who have ended up in situations,
Mhm.
who have ended up in situations where that are not necessarily desirable, not desired by anyone for that matter. Somebody who is in their right frame of mind,
Mhm.
right state of mind, right state of person, if I should say that, you will find that this individual ended up in situations that was not necessarily desirable, and they just can't get out of it. They can't extricate themselves from it.
Right.
And no matter what you do, even if you were to get the entire world behind them, they just can't extricate. So, for an example, take drugs for that matter, right?
Mhm.
Think about it. So somebody migrated,
Yeah.
ended up maybe having a good time, understanding what a good time is, and having that good time in whatever form it was or whatever form it is, and me for one moment, one that's just probably just the one moment in time when they just may have used some sort of drug, whether it was introduced to them by someone else or they actually started out themselves. What eventually happens is sometimes they can't, their head, the nervous system can't manage it,
Mhm.
and as a result, you have the worst of them, right? So you have them on the worst side of time. You have them, you have that individual is on the worst side of time. That individual then ends up in situations.
But you are alluding to a situation in which that person derails,
Well,
right? And
total,
gets
yeah,
gets
total,
out of the path that he or she chosen, right?
right. But
To
then,
go by, right?
right, which is yes, which is precisely what it is, right? Or what it seems to be.
Right.
Okay, and I want to be very analytical to say, okay? I not necessarily want to say that this because I can go back to a book and say that these are the
No,
facts, right?
those are the
But these are the
traps and dangers
but these
of
are the observations. These are the
and incidents that we sometimes can't control, right? Like
exactly right.
things can happen,
These
right?
are
Like
the
whatever.
observations. These are my observations, whereby things such as that happens, and an individual ends up, you know, and
Okay, but
and
to make it a little bit shorter,
mhm.
right? In your case, you don't feel like you still feel that you've been on the trajectory you have devised and you have followed, right? Throughout your stay in Canada, right?
Right, no, certainly. So yeah, so certainly. So, and I mean, I feel like I've stayed honest to that path, right? I've remained honest to the path, and 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 I think what keeps me honest, right, or what keeps me in line,
Mm-hmm.
right, without having to derail, what keeps me down the middle, is again always being conscious of the fact that this danger lies on that side of the precipice, or of the so again, like it's
Yeah,
a precipice,
yeah,
right, on
it
either
is.
side. It's
It
like an
is.
abyss on either side,
It's
right?
like we are always on the edge,
So
kind of
yeah,
thing,
so
or
certainly,
to a certain point,
so
I
so
think, right?
basically, what we are, so we are at the watershed,
Hmm.
right? So walking in the watershed, which is good, it's safe being on the watershed, but you know that if you go either this way or that way, then you're down the abyss, right? And being able to pull it may be difficult
But
to have someone.
the way you're describing that, it's quite dramatic.
No,
Like
but it is,
you know,
it
like you
is.
make you like drama. I'm sure.
I'm not quite sure I like drama though, but I'm just I'm using that to no, but what I'm doing though,
I'm
no,
sure
what I'm no,
you are influenced
I'm
by certain movies, maybe.
not necessarily
No.
so, not necessarily so, but I'm just using those analogies to at least highlight the reality.
Hmm.
It's the reality, right? I'm not using that, but again, I do not necessarily want to be too specific.
No, no. You will find people.
Hmm.
I'm sure you will find people that fall into that kind of category, right? Like that
Hmm.
they were on the watershed, that they were on the edge, right,
Hmm.
of their experiences,
Right.
and they derail
Hmm.
and completely turn their lives around, right, or
Well, oh yeah, oh
upside
yeah,
down,
oh no,
right?
certainly, certainly. I
There are
mean,
people like that, I'm
they're,
sure,
they're
right? Like there's
individuals.
a
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying. And so this is the hard side of immigration, though,
okay,
right? So this is the hard side of immigration. So because what I'm saying to you here is not necessarily that this is gonna happen or this is what happens to somebody, but I'm looking at it within the context of immigration, right? So people migrated. People either on that trajectory, you prosper, whatever we call prosper, we call prosperous,
right,
or you could fall short
yeah,
and never ever prosper.
right.
But because you're an immigrant, because you migrated, because you're here and you may not have anybody else as say
As
family,
a yeah,
family as
family
support,
members to lean on, to get
support,
support from,
right? To
right?
get support from, then you're totally lost,
That's a good point.
right?
That's a very good
So
point.
this
Yeah,
is I know I kind of
that
stretch.
adds to the stress of
Exactly. So I know
your
I stretched.
realization that
I know I
that
stretched it.
path is has to be kept
That is
intact,
real. That
right?
is
Yeah,
real,
yeah,
right? So, and I know I stretched it to the point of no return, right? In order to come to that conclusion,
yeah. Okay.
but I had to stretch it to that extent because I want individuals to realize that this is not just a matter of you migrate and life is going to be all handy dandy because you see all the bright lights on TV and
Hmm.
then you come in and you get it. Now you have to be disciplined, right? You have to be disciplined, but at the same time, you also have to be disciplined with humility,
Hmm.
right? You have to be disciplined, but you with a sense of humility, right?
Right.
So at least you can absorb, you can observe, and then you can create your path
Right.
to prosperity, right? So in many cases, you might find people who are just coming in and just want to just hit it hard from the very first time, from the very first moment, not even having a clue as to what the dangers are, right? Not even observing what the dangers are, not even knowing what's going on. I mean, I'm sure you know you're familiar with individuals who've migrated,
Yes.
who've been here as immigrants,
Okay. Yes.
and who've ended up on the wrong side of things,
Uh, well, I
right?
don't know if you can call it like as soon as they arrive.
Not necessarily as soon as they arrive, no, in time, right? So, for an
I've
example,
heard, I've heard of
so
a few.
yeah,
Yeah.
so there might be individuals who maybe it has been as a result of severe
But
divorces.
from my own experience in my environment and community, people I met, right? I can remember anyone who has taken strides to achieve certain level of their
Certainly.
plans, careers, right?
Hmm.
And all of a sudden got derailed. I can't remember
Not
cannot
necessarily.
picture
Yeah,
anyone
but
that has gone through that experience.
no, it's not necessary. But again, what is derailment?
What is derailment?
Derailment, it doesn't necessarily. Okay, so I only use the one aspect of that. Say, for an example, somebody might have become addicted to a substance, right? Say substance abuse, right? That's one. But there are other individuals who may not necessarily have tilted towards substance abuse. However, they
But this
may,
is an extreme. This
no,
is
it's an
an
extreme.
extreme.
But it's an extreme in the sense that it can create. brings a person to their own demise, right? So it creates the person's own demise, really, right? So the person, however, there is another, right? Because the social, it's all part of the social fabric, right? So, for an example, or the social, yeah, social fabric, if I could say it that way.
Let me give you an example I
For an
heard.
example, there.
Let me give you an
Li-
example I heard.
so listen to that. Listen to that.
Yeah.
Before you give me the example, you keep that thought, right? So, for an example, there might be another individual who may have, oh, nice life, gotten married, living a life in their home, wife and kids, and then at some point in time, they have to move their separate ways, right?
Yes, but
And
this is happening all the time, and we are
no,
not, and we are speaking about something more concrete, right? Let me
yeah,
give you an example. Let me give you an example. You have a person that is working, for example, at as an investment advisor, let's say, okay, and that person, and I heard of it, and that person was working at the not invest. Sorry, it wasn't investment advisor. It was a stockbroker, right? However, that person could not advise on because this was a discount brokerage. So no advice, investment advice was allowed to the clients.
right.
Okay, but the client insisted to get some hints where to put his or her money, right?
Mm-hmm.
And imagine the investment representative suggested something,
Mm-hmm.
okay,
Mm-hmm.
and eventually what happened was that investment dropped. The client lost money,
Mm-hmm.
okay. He complained and named the person who advised him on that.
Right.
That person was fired. That person was fired because she was not supposed to give any investment advice.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what the result of that was in terms of compensation to the client.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, don't know about that.
Right. Right. Yeah.
But something happened. Okay, and because of this whole situation, the investment representative lost her job. Okay, so this is a good example of what we are trying to convey here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because when you are talking about the family issues and you are stretching it to a much larger area, right?
But you may say that it's being stretched to a much larger area, which is quite understandable. However, these are these are human events, right? These are events in our lives, in our everyday lives that you may not necessarily understand that impacts people and the extent to which it impacts the people involved, right?
Right.
The entire family, so to speak. So, but even with regards to what you've just mentioned, it has a huge impact on that person as well. And and what I wanted to appreciate though is that, or what I want to appreciate, or what I try to appreciate about those sort of stories is like is the extent to which it impacts the individuals involved, right? So it may not, to some of us, it may not impact me
Hmm.
in any way. I might just say, okay, I will bounce out of that and move on to the next thing.
Right.
But somebody else may not even be able to bounce out of it,
Yeah, but it's a
right?
little bit of an issue, right? Because
Even
it depends what stage of your career you were
right,
facing this problem, right? Because
right,
you've generated pension, you have
right.
tenure with the company, you have accumulated some experience in
Right.
that particular area,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it is not 100% sure that you are going to, move out and get a job the next day.
Next day, right?
It may happen gradually to get to
And
the same point,
and
or
and this
completely change the career, which
yeah,
it kind of messes you up at
it
that
messes
point.
with quite a bit. It
Yeah.
messes with you quite a bit, and that's basically what I'm saying. So any of those events, any of those human events, messes up the individual quite a bit, regardless of who the person is, regardless of you know. And but it's also it's also very important for us to note that it impacts immigrants a lot more.
Yes.
The impact is a lot more, is a lot greater on the immigrant than it would be on somebody who has family support, who is
Right.
there,
Exactly.
right? So,
Exactly.
I mean, and
Absolutely.
I understand
Absolutely.
exactly what you're saying, but I'm using whenever you mention to the extremes, it really they're extremes.
There are
It
extremes,
it,
of
it,
course.
it encompasses the broader community, right? It impacts the broader it encompasses the broader community, but at the same time is the reality, right? So I just want individuals to know that these things can have magnified impact, negative impact on immigrants rather than not, right? So whether you're a man, woman, child, whatever, right? Boy, girl, it
Yeah,
doesn't really
that's
matter,
true.
right?
Okay.
So, mhm.
I just wanna. Okay. So this part. So you. Okay. So I understand that you, when you came, you had quite a smooth beginning. You know, there was no major barriers except for getting used to those stages that we discussed, right?
Mhm.
How about nostalgia to your home country? Has there been any nostalgia? Have you planned any uh, potential returns to your home country?
To the
Whether you
curve.
any time during your lifetime here, you know, whether retirement or sooner or not at all, you know, like
Well,
how do you perceive these things?
well, no, well, I mean, I always see the Caribbean as now I see the Caribbean as places that I really want to go back. I mean, I feel, I'm thinking, I'm always saying to myself, why are we growing old?
Right.
And I mean, I'm always asking myself, why am I growing old, right? And I'm going to use myself as the example here, right? But I mean that for everybody. It encompasses everyone. I'm like, why are we growing old? But why am I growing old, right? And that speaks volumes to the question that you've just asked. And the reason why I ask this question every day is simply because I want to go back to the Caribbean to enjoy the Caribbean.
Exactly.
I really want to go
But you
there.
are growing
But
old every day, you
but
know.
stop using the word old, though. You're maturing around.
Yeah, yeah.
So we all maturing
You are not
as
going
we
to be a teenager on the beach like you used to be.
like we used to be,
But
right?
you would like to do
I
that,
would love
right?
to do it. I'd love to be that way. I would love to be on the beach again and spend
Yeah,
my entire day, my entire weekend on the beach, right?
exactly.
I'd love to go island hopping again,
Yeah,
right? Because it's about the Caribbean, right?
yeah,
So, but then, but when I really think about it, it's like I'm stuck in routines.
yes,
Again, we come back to routines, right?
right.
So you're stuck in routines, and as a result, you know, and when you go back, it's like you're going to be going back to being stuck within a home, within four walls, right? I mean, you'll still travel, you'll still get your Caribbean things going, but
Hmm.
again, it's a different. There's a huge difference, right? So in terms of what you want to do and how you want to do it, and travel from one island to the next, which is rather simple, but will that be your interest? Would you be interested in just getting your backyard garden going again and entertaining yourself in that
Yeah.
manner?
Okay. So how do
So
you deal with that? You know, realization that you know your life. You don't have parallel lives. You know, parallel lives.
no, no, we
You know,
don't.
you
Yeah,
have one
yes,
here. That's it, right? And that's
that's
what
it.
you lead, right? And the only thing that you can do is to go back at some point
Yeah, and then
and
continue from there, right?
cherish the moment, right?
Yeah, continue from where you left off,
Exactly,
right? So
exactly.
just continue, right? So
Right.
yeah, certainly. So it's there's no other way of looking at it besides just hoping that whenever I decide to to migrate.
So there is a plan in your mind about this.
Yeah, I mean there is because like there is a plan for retirement. There's a plan for everything else,
Right,
right? So
right,
there's
right,
always that perceived plan. There's always
right.
that perception that you will eventually that well, I will eventually go back and then do these other things and enjoy the Caribbean, enjoy the fresh
I see.
waters of the Caribbean and what it contains, and the hills and what it contains, and and just
Exactly.
living that sort of a lifestyle that
And there is one more thing I was going to ask you. You know that since you left your society over there in Barbados, right, has not stood still. You know,
yeah.
the society evolved in terms of the mentality, in terms of
Yeah, yeah.
any aspect you can
Well,
imagine, right? Like
certainly.
they have moved forward. New generation came,
Mhm.
and new generation comes with new ideas and new thinking, right?
Mhm.
Do you think that when you come back eventually, do you think that you will find yourself comfortable in this new environment, even though this is your home country?
Well,
Because I've been
certainly.
asking
So,
myself this question.
yeah.
When I think about going back to Poland,
Right,
right?
right.
I am going back not to the
Not to the Poland that
society I
not
left
not to the Poland
30 years ago,
not to the Poland
right?
that right?
Exactly. There is a new society there.
No, but
Okay,
no.
those people that remember those times
Mhm.
when I left,
Mhm.
that they are either my age
Mhm.
or much older, but they have evolved
Oh yeah, certainly.
over that time. So they have different thinking now than they
Mhm.
used to.
Right, right.
Okay.
No.
I only remember, like with immigrants, it's like you leave on that date and everything else is unknown for you.
Mhm. Mhm.
From that time on, everything
Right.
else is
It's unknown,
unknown.
right? Certainly.
That
Yeah.
their lives is unknown,
Right.
right?
Certainly. Yeah.
How they evolve, how they change thinking, how they change mentality, and how they change approach to life.
Mhm.
Okay, you only remember to what happened from your birth up until the time you left,
Mhm. Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And when you when you think of going back, you are thinking about going back to those times. They are gone,
Yeah. This gone.
and they
This
are gone. This is
this no longer exists.
history,
It no
right?
longer exists. Yeah. So
Okay,
certainly. Yeah. So no, no. I mean that, and that is good. So we embrace growth because individuals will grow. Individuals, and as you have the newer generations, the millennials and the Gen Zs and the Gen Xs and whatever
exactly.
we consider them to be.
Yeah.
So what will eventually happen? You have to adapt, right? But what I think they will do, because they're so well integrated, right? The younger generation is so well integrated that they will, based on your based on your perception, based on your understanding, and based on how much you have grown mentally, psychologically,
Right.
based on how much you have grown, based on how expanded your horizons are, right? You will you will find that they will also embrace you, right? But it all
Will
depends.
they?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. You can easily make that adaptation. Oh yeah, you will adapt. You'll be able to adapt, and then they will
because
adapt to
I
you.
because you have either this scenario
Because
or a scenario where you are so you realize after you go back, okay, you will realize that you have got used to that living here in Canada.
that this is not for you
That
anymore.
that going back to your country, to your culture, to your language, to
Mhm.
everything, you realize that you are feeling more stranger there than here,
Right, and there, but no, certainly. So there are cases
right?
when that will certainly happen, right? And I'm sure there are individuals who felt that way, but it's individual. Again, as I said, individuals, right?
Hmm.
It's why do I say individuals? It's simply because there's some individuals who are not necessarily open to change, who are not necessarily, they cannot make the adjustments as fast as they would like to make the
Right.
adjustments, right?
Right.
So as a result,
We are going to order some more beer, right? One more beer. Okay. So, sorry to interrupt. Okay.
because I got it. Yeah,
Have
let's
you
go. Let's
actually
go.
ordered something?
No, 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 I didn't order anything.
So why did you say you ordered something?
No, because you were just talking. I thought you were talking for the
Oh
camera.
no.
Come on, man. Chris Marina movie
What's the
though.
Okay, it's still taking. Okay, perfect.
Yeah. So
Wow,
that
that's a long movie, man.
yeah, that way in the
47
movie,
minutes.
way in the movie, it's all make believe, man. Come
Hold the
on.
thought. Hold the thought, okay? Because
What
I'm going
thought?
to clip it together,
Chris,
okay? Like,
yeah, but
go.
we gotta go. We gotta go,
What time
man.
is it now?
It's 8:45.
Quarter to. Okay, we have 20 minutes, okay?
Oh, 20 minutes. That's too long, man. Oh,
Okay,
God.
so finish the thought what you were saying, okay?
No,
I'm not going to bring
no.
anyone.
What I was saying, like for an example, some other people they do not know how to adapt, right? Or they do not know how to adapt, but they have really relinquished. They've kind of relinquished the ability to adapt, right, to the new culture, to the new because you're going back home, right?
Yes.
But very rarely that happens. Because when most people move back, they're like, "Oh my goodness, I'm in heaven because that's my home. That's where I
Yes.
grew up, right?" So, oh man, this is it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So nothing can take that away from them, right?
Well,
So
until the reality hits you.
no, well, until for an example, reality might hit you based on certain amenities, right? So you might say, "Oh well, I needed." There's no Starbucks in the neighborhood. There's no, but it's a culture shock, right? That's what it is.
No,
It's the
but
culture shock.
like I heard
It's the
so
culture shock.
many stories,
Mm-hmm.
about people. I've met a few people in
Mm-hmm.
my life here
Mm-hmm.
in Canada,
Mm-hmm.
right? During my stay here,
Mm-hmm.
that after a certain period of time,
Mm-hmm.
10 years, right? In those two family cases, right? Two families, right? I
Mm-hmm.
met, and they after 10 years staying in Canada
Right.
went back to Poland.
Right.
They lasted 1 year over there,
Yeah, they
and they
couldn't.
realized, no, no,
No, this
no,
is not for me.
we have to come back. No,
This is not
this
for me.
is
Right.
after 10 years only.
10 years. Can you
Imagine
imagine?
30.
30? Can you imagine?
No,
Yeah. So
that's my question.
yeah. So yeah, they would have been paralyzed. Then. They would not have been.
It's like the way you say things, the
Yeah.
way you ask for things,
Yeah.
the way you react to in
Yeah.
certain situations. You may
Right.
sound like, you know,
What's wrong with this guy?
weird guy.
Exactly. What's
People may
wrong with
look at
this
you
guy?
and say, "Hey, where are you
Yeah.
coming? Where did you come from?"
Exactly. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Oh, one more beer, okay?
Oh, we gotta do it fast, man.
I, I,
I
I
gotta.
have it fast. And you
Okay.
have to order one too,
Oh, Chris. Okay.
okay?